Chaser, talking about the super fun world of addiction and alcoholism and fun stuff. And then, by the way, if you're watching this, grateful you are. I've noticed a few things. If you try to search for these videos, it's honestly funny to me. There's seems to be another very popular podcast or show called No Chaser, which seems to be usually about debauchery or drinking, which I think is hilarious. And my name is David Eisnagel. I have a very, very weird and specific name, and I I used to do stand-up comedy, fledgling career, and I know if you search my name, one of the first videos that comes up is one of my stand-up sets, and in the title is legalizing meth. That's also just a funny thing to me. But so today I'm gonna do a topic that was kind of sprung from real life. I was in a recovery meeting recently, and there was a person who had been going regularly, and they had relapsed. And this person had a solid amount of time. He was a gentleman in his 40s. He had about 6 months. Now, for those not super involved in recovery or addiction or don't know the ins and outs or just the reality of it, like 6 months in a grand scheme of thing, I mean, what is 6 months in the life of like a 40-year-old? That is it can be an incredibly long time. Like it is honestly, yeah, I think some people cheer on people getting like 1 month or 3 months and it's like, yay. And, some people unaware might kind of roll their eyes like, oh yeah, great. It is a huge time. So anybody out there that is around that amount of time, that's fucking awesome. Because this person in particular was so huge because the most he had said he'd been able to string together before was like a month. I mean, you're talking about a person that's been drinking since they were like 18, and they've only been able to put together in their life like a month, and they hit 6 months. That's awesome. Now, the not awesome part was, as I mentioned, he had relapsed. And so he had talked with someone amongst our, circle of friends, so we kind of knew, and we were super glad that he was coming in. I've noticed in recovery rooms, regardless of what you think about the philosophy of AA or smart recovery or any other sort of different school of thought, people in recovery, suffered addiction, alcoholism, are very forgiving and non-judgmental if they've really been through this shit. So it was totally welcoming. There's no judgment or anything like that. But something very interesting happened, and it's something that speaks to a larger point that I'm going to talk about here. He came in and he was like, yeah, I fucked up for a weekend, and I drank, and I could just tell, because this, by the way, this scenario has happened before. I've seen it played out, unfortunately many times, but this specific scenario has happened a lot too, where you could tell people were just waiting for the reason, why, like what caused you to relapse, what was the deal, and you could just, people were, trying to be attentive and caring, but you could just kind of see their bracing, like, all right, when is he going to drop the bomb? Like, did his wife file for divorce, or did he get fired from his job, or did what catastrophic thing happened to make him give up his like very, very hard fought recovery and his incredibly tough 6 months that he put together and the momentum he had going? Something terrible had to happen to make him stop that, right? And he was candid. It was something I like about this particular gentleman. And he was like, I was bored. And I could tell in the room there was a kind of a disturbance in the force, if you will, where people were like, wait, what? Because we're expecting like something big, like, something had to occur, like there had to be just a bunch of like fights at work, and then a fight with your significant other, or stuff going wrong with your kids, or just like, I don't know, some health problem, just maybe not one big thing, like, but a bunch of like stressful shit, right? But he was just like, I just gave in. I just had too much free time a couple weekends in a row, and I was bored. And what I'm talking about today is that it's not completely unspoken in recovery circles when you talk about relapse. People bring up like the triggering nature of boredom and stuff like that, but it does not get enough credit, if you want to call it that, for how big of a factor it is in relapse. Because we think about relapse, when you think about the the falling down, or what made you succumb to going back to drinking? What pulled you back into this like horrible affliction cycle all over again? And you assume it's got to be something going on with your mental health. You assume, like as I mentioned before, some like bad external factors. Like you assume it's like stress related. I mean, and when people say boredom, it in a sense it feels like it doesn't get enough sympathy, because it's like, really, you're bored? Because relapse for some people is like throwing their life away. I mean, or it's certainly putting it in a huge amount of risk of everything crumbling and everything you worked for getting destroyed and hurting people, and just becoming the selfish monster that you hated. And it was like you did that because you were bored. But boredom, like, to put this in an ineloquent way, boredom is a real thing. Like, boredom is just, it's not as, I don't know, spicy as other reasons for relapse, or it's not as affecting, and it doesn't seem as like big of a thing, because like, there's so much on the line, and you're gonna just screw this up because you were bored. And that's a sentiment I get a lot. And like, earlier on, I would kind of feel the same way, where you'd go over like some sort of like relapse prevention thing, and you'd like write down the stuff. It's like, I hope this thing doesn't happen, or if like cravings really hit, like this is stuff I gotta do. And every once in a while, I like the bottom of like the 20 things on the like list, almost ordered in like a hierarchy of like most severe to like least. There would always be like boredom kind of near the bottom. Like, it was almost an afterthought. But boredom it's an incredibly strong and dangerous thing that can really put you in a vulnerable place. Because one thing about boredom is that it is fertile ground for the mechanisms in your mind that can get you to go back to drinking or using. Because like boredom, I was talking with some people about a big thing about addiction and alcoholism and all that stuff, is that it's strongly tied to an avoidance of pain. When you hear the word pain, you're thinking of like I said, stress, or like depression, or low self-esteem, guilt, all shame, all that type of stuff. And you don't really think of boredom in that sense of stuff that brings you pain. And pain is almost too emotive of a word. What I really feel it should be is that like the engaging in drinking and using is to avoid discomfort. And that makes a little bit more sense. There is a like discomfort in being bored. And when I talk about fertile ground for like the negative mechanisms of your mind, boredom gives you too much like unregulated thought. It's kind of like it's almost a paradox where it's low level but anxiety inducing at the same time, almost. At least I've heard people describe it that way, where it almost puts them on edge, or they can get more frustrated, because it's just like, I need to do something. It's kind of like an empty stomach for your mind. The way noises will be made, and it feels like you're getting kind of maybe cramped up, or things are tight, and you get cranky and frustrated. And it's like a sort of like crankiness, and mentally and emotionally, because you need stimulation. And that search for stimulation is kind of one of the big things that like put us on this path of addiction in the first place. That need for like, you mix that in with like factors of instant gratification, and the need to like fill your time. And boredom is, I mean, it can come in many ways too, because when you think about it, a lot of people, you spend a lot of time drinking or in your addiction. And there's just a lot of time, whether it's like the pursuit of it, whether it's the rituals around it, whether it's just being under the influence, the time you spent doing that. And one like, I don't think it's articulated enough, but a really bad feature about alcoholism and addiction is that when you're under the influence, when you have that mood altering chemical rushing through your mind, it allows you to be content or have fun with being bored. Like one example I always use is that, like when I had sobriety of like a year, just like a year I had in sobriety, in a month of me drinking, I watched about the same amount of TV in a whole year of sobriety. Like, I learned something about myself, that like I don't watch that much TV when I'm sober, because I don't know. There's like I'm not better than anybody. I do other stuff because most TV shows or things like that, they don't really like captivate me in that way. Like I constantly I just whip out the phone, and that's another thing too. I played around on my phone, just dumb games and stupid crap, way more when I was drunk, because your mind is kind of tempered down. The bar is set kind of low. There's lower needs, lower thresholds to like be entertained, and like your mind is just kind of dulled in that way. And so I I remember there's a little thing on my phone where it can do like there was an app I had where it showed how much. I don't know why I had this at the time, because it shows kind of how much time you spend on your phone, how much time you spend in certain apps. And it was crazy to look at the comparison of like me drinking in a month, how much I was playing like this stupid like little mobile game, and or how much I was on this like sites like Facebook or Facebook pages can be fun or entertaining or meme stuff, but I can do that at like 5 minute intervals. But I would just spend like I'd be spending hours of it in a week because I was under the influence. So I could kind of I was gonna say I could be bored, but in my mind I wasn't bored. But when you take that away, all of a sudden your bar you have for stimulation goes way up. Like you need to be active, you need to be doing something. And a lot of people, what they'll do when they get sober is they just try to throw themselves into busyness. So they'll work more, or they'll have, I know a lot of mothers that would have like a hyper focus on their kids, where they just their kids started being like, what the fuck's going on? Because now they're all super involved because they just got to be doing something, because there was such a craving now for stimulation. When your mind is indulged under the influence, you need more to like keep your attention. You need more to, especially, this is just talking about like keeping your attention and being engaged with something. That's not even speaking about the fact of like having fun, like actually getting enjoyment from things. Sorry, we had to interrupt this very, very cool video with breaking news. The breaking news is there's like a thing messed up with my phone right now where I can't like upload a file this big. So sorry, I had to break this up into two parts. So, but part two coming out soon, to be continued. And then I will get my life together so I can do a video that's over 20 minutes. All right.